How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Ash Wednesday. If you see people walking about or on television who appear to have a smudge on their forehead, it is a cross that probably has gotten smudged through the day. No need to tell them they have something there. They know they went to Mass this morning. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. It's not just Ash Wednesday today. It is officially 50 days until the Masters. That makes me happy. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. We finally have a game plan. I'm talking, of course, about the battle plan for the Republicans headed into November. They've seemed a little rudderless and disjointed. Last night at the Capitol Hill Club in Washington, D.C., on the east side of the Capitol, just down the street, the Republicans have a little club that they get to meet in. The Democrats have one as well. And the White House leadership team, Susie Wiles was there. James Blair, who is the Politico for the legislative affairs for the White House and the political team, he was there. They gave Republicans a briefing. Most of the cabinet was present. Interestingly, I am told one of the things that they made very clear is that the president is not going to be poll tested. He is not going to be poll driven. He is not going to be data driven. He's going to go out on the campaign trail and on the news channels and say what he wants to say. He's going to be as off script as he wants to be. And the rest of the gang needs to stay on message and needs to be as focused as possible to compensate for the president's lack of message discipline. Now, listen, this isn't a criticism. It's a reality. The president likes to go out and have these big rallies around the country, which he expects to do more of. He stands on stage. He talks for several hours. He says things that the media grabs hold of, often takes out of context. And the rest of the Republicans need to double down on the message. What is the message? The message is, as I told you it needed to be, it's the economy, stupid. If you text Eric to 33777, ERICK, the very first link that you get back is the show notes. The show notes are headed out right now. And Mark Halperin, my friend who I do regular video chats with, he is really well sourced in what happened last night. And a lot of what I'm getting, I've gotten from Mark Halperin about the meeting last night among the Republicans. You will note how it leaked to multiple outlets, but here's what you ought to understand is that it was always going to leak. What should reassure you is that it's a credible game plan. They're not going to talk about the economy per se. They will be talking about affordability issues. The president has, in fact, taken steps to lower prescription drug prices. The president has rolled back steel and aluminum tariffs to help bring those costs down. The president is importing beef from Argentina to lower beef prices in this country. One of the reasons beef prices are so high in this country is we actually have one of the historically lowest cattle herds in the United States. I did not realize that. I just actually saw that. It was flagged for me. U.S. cattle and calf inventory is down 85 million, the lowest since 1951. The herd has shrunk by 45 million from the 1975 peak of 130 million and 10 million since 2020. As a result, beef and veal prices rose 15% year over year in January, making one of the fastest increases in the food basket. Chicken prices only rose 1.1%, while milk prices were roughly unchanged. At current herd levels, even if ranchers began expanding, the new supply would not hit grocery shelves until 2020. 2028 at the earliest. That's why beef prices, among other reasons, are so high. Part of them as well is because of the meat monopoly in the packing industry. We have a reduction in the amount of companies in the country that are actually butchering and processing meat. They haven't wanted to pay farmers, so farmers have culled their herds essentially to allow the growth of the herds so that they can get more money, among other things. It's way more complicated than any one issue. You know, I'm on in Dodge City, Kansas. God bless you people in Dodge City. The people in Dodge City, Kansas, most of the meat in this country, most of the beef is processed within 15, 20 miles of Dodge City. And it is, in fact, a situation where we have a limited number of slaughterhouses in the country that are, it's a monopoly industry, oligopoly. It's not really a monopoly. It's an oligopoly. There are very few of them. There has been a lot of consolidation. Prices have been kept low. Farmers have been hurt. Herders have been hurt. Now the herders have reduced their cattle, raising the prices. They're getting more money, but you and I are paying for it at the grocery store, in addition to higher fuel prices that we were paying during the Biden administration. The Trump administration solution is to increase imports from Argentina, which is helping bring down prices, but it's also made some American herders and farmers upset, but it's necessary to keep the public happy because the public likes meat. The only people who are really happy right now are the environmentalists because prices have gone up. It's almost like the end and age of environmentalism. It's what they've wanted, the end of meat in this country. Notice, though, chicken prices have barely come up. But the president and his team, they're going to take on the affordability issue. It is a good thing that they're taking on the affordability issue because it's what matters to Americans. Now, notably, one of the things that they said last night at the meeting was stop telling people their wages have gone up. Stop telling people their wages have gone up. Good. That's good advice. Now, why is it good advice? It's good advice because it reverts back to the Biden administration. I was on radio this morning up in Vermont, talking up there. I was on WVMT this morning at 7 a.m. And one of the things I pointed out to the guys up there on their morning show is that the Trump administration risks slipping into the Biden administration talking point that you may not feel it, but you're actually better off. That's what the Biden administration did. The Biden administration tried to tell people that they're better off, even though they didn't feel better off. And in my experience from running campaigns and just being an observer of politics and political campaigns, you can't tell people that their condition is good if they don't believe you. You have probably experienced this to a degree in your life when your life is falling apart, when you feel like your life is falling apart. Having someone come in and tell you, oh, it's not that bad, it tends to fester resentment. No, you don't understand how my life is falling apart. Oh, it can't be that bad. And you get angry with them. That's the situation here with the Trump administration. The data does show that people's wages are going up. In fact, at this point, again, the wages are going up above the rate of inflation, which is a good thing. But concurrent to all of that, people don't feel it. And because people don't feel it, they don't want you to tell them that everything is going up. They don't want you to explain to them, mansplain to them how their life is good. Here's what I know. They're going to abandon trying to explain to you that your life is good. Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to focus on wanting to ban stock trading for Congress, transparency on health insurance data, lowering prescription drug costs, and the Trump tax cuts. And I've got to tell you, side note, well, not side note, directly related to this. I talked to two well-known CPAs yesterday who sometimes appear on CNBC talking about tax issues. They're in the financial world. And they said a lot of Americans are going to be very pleasantly surprised by their tax refunds this year. When they started running the numbers on how the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was structured and the preservation of the prior Trump tax cuts and the adjustments made, people and businesses are actually going to see some money come back. And both of these CPAs independently were telling me, do not be surprised when Americans get a little happy when they see their taxes this year. And that could translate over in. In fact, the Trump administration intends to double down on this particular issue headed into the midterms as people start getting their tax refunds. They want people to realize Trump did that, not Joe Biden. Now, the Democrats, the Republicans think, are going to fall for a trap that they're not going to be able to resist. By the way, Philip just sent me this. Average tax refunds will be 11% higher this year, according to the IRS. It's going to surprise people. More than a 10% increase in your tax refund. It's going to surprise people. It's going to make people happy. And Trump is going to campaign on taking the credit for it, and the Americans are probably going to give it to him. While the Republicans are going to be focused on your 11% increase in your tax refund and the fact that they brought down prescription drug prices and the fact that they are working on affordability, the Republicans are also banking on the Democrats doing one thing you know and I know they're not going to be able to stop doing: screaming about Trump as an authoritarian threat. The Republican campaign headed into the midterms is intending to focus on the economy, knowing the Democrats intend to focus on Donald Trump. And the Republicans hope that they'll be able to persuade Hispanic voters to come back to them and male voters to come out for them just on the tax cuts and cost of living and the affordability issues, while Democrats are screaming about a threat to democracy. The good white progressive women in America, they're going to go barnstorm at the polls because Donald Trump's an authoritarian threat who's going to take their uterus from them. But the Republicans are hoping that men and Hispanic voters and married women are going to show up because of the Trump tax cuts, and they're going to vote for Donald Trump because of that. They're going to vote for Trump because they remember how bad the Biden economy was. And by the way, I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to help themselves. I want to play you a piece of audio. And it's a staggering piece of audio if you actually understand what's being said. And it's something the Democrats should be able to capitalize on. And I don't believe the Democrats are going to be able to capitalize on it because I don't think they have the message discipline to be able to do it. Jamison Greer is the trade person for the White House, the U.S. trade representative. I want you to listen to this conversation on CNBC.
But the other piece to keep in mind, too, is it's not regressive. Most consumption in America is done by the wealthiest people. So the idea that it's somehow regressive is just wrong. And by the way,
perfect. A tax on wealthy people. That ought to get unanimous approval in the Hakeem Jeffries house.
What one would think. But again, these tariffs aren't making their way down to consumers anyway.
Yeah, actually they are. We've had multiple pieces of data saying the tariffs are making their way to consumers. But I just want you to think about what you just heard from the U.S. trade representative for Donald Trump's White House, that it's the wealthy who are paying the tariffs, not you. Remember, they told us it was going to be foreign corporations paying the tariffs, not Americans. Now they're saying, well, Americans are, but it's the wealthy Americans. It's not the consumers. Actually, it's a regressive tax because it's felt more heavily by the poor than the rich. The rich have more money, so paying the tariff for them isn't as big a deal as it is for the poor in this country. And the Democrats could actually seize on that issue using Jamison Greer's own words against him, could use the Trump administration's own data against them on how bad the tariffs are. And the Democrats are going to be physically and intellectually incapable of doing that. The Republicans, Donald Trump in particular, has always been blessed with the stupidity of his opposition. The Democrats are not going to be able to run against the tariffs because many of the Democrats actually like the policy. It's the Republicans who don't like it, and they've just held their nose and kept their mouth shut about it. It's the Democrats who like the tariffs, and they can't campaign against it. They can't campaign against the president on the economy. The Democrats are so focused on thinking that Donald Trump, or anger about Trump, will drive people to the polls. Will people really turn out to stop Donald Trump when they didn't in 2024, particularly if they're getting an 11% increase in their tax refund? I have my doubts, and so do the Republicans, and this is their game plan for mitigating the damage in November. They've got 36 targeted House seats and 6 targeted Senate seats. They do expect some losses because historically that's what happens, but they do intend to mitigate the damage as best they can by focusing on the economy while Democrats try to make it about Trump. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Let me tell you about last night. The Republicans were able to hold a state Senate seat in Georgia last night, so you're not hearing about it in national news. Remember when the Republicans lost the special election in the Texas seat that had been plus 17 for Trump? Major national news. They held a seat in Georgia last night, my local state Senate district here in Middle Georgia. Steve McNeil, the Republican won. I was at his party last night. But Republican turnout was lower than it should have been. He still won, but it should have been a bigger margin of victory. And the local campaign was telling me they knocked on thousands of doors in the last few weeks of the election. It was hard to get Republicans out to vote. Thankfully, they showed up to stop the communists. And the guy really, I had to just, I don't say communist by hyperbole because so many people just label any Democrat a communist. This guy actually was. And even Democrats in the state legislature were concerned about this guy getting elected, and yet he did very well. The Black Lives Matters crew was down in Georgia driving black voters to the polls around the counties. It's an impressive thing. You guys in your own communities, wherever you are in the nation, are going to see this turnout by the left. They've outsourced to private groups. But thankfully, the Republican won. The race almost could not be called because of a deer. This is the most Middle Georgia country thing ever. Crawford County is a rural county here in Middle Georgia. And on the way to the Board of Elections, one of the precinct managers carrying the tabulation results hit a deer. True story. Hit a deer. Thankfully, she is doing fine. The deer is dead. The woman who hit the deer is fine. There's no conspiracy. There's no stillation. She literally hit a deer, and that county had delay reporting its results until they could go retrieve the documentation from her while she dealt with her car. That's just only in rural parts of the country does stuff like that happen. We can't call an election because the election supervisor hit a deer on the way to the Board of Elections. Wow. Let me tell you about Renai. They manufacture their tankless water heaters in Griffin, Georgia, and they are fantastic water heaters, and you can replace your tank of a water heater with a tankless water heater like I have from Renai. You can do it in your existing house. They're easy to install. We had the gas line guy came to our house and installed it, and it just works. And it keeps us from ever running out of hot water. Our power bill has gone down. We had electric water heaters at our house. We don't have a natural gas hookup at our house. Whoever built the house didn't install one. We got a propane tank, though, for our fireplaces and for our water heater, and we don't run out of hot water. And the kids can take showers, and they're not fighting over hot water, which is remarkable. They used to when we had the water tanks. Go to talkingtankless.com. Check out the Renai tankless water heaters. They're really reasonably priced, great replacements for your tanks if you're in the market for a new one. If you're buying a new house, it makes no sense to put in water tanks when you can go tankless and have the peace of mind of never running out of hot water. TalkingTankless.com is the website, TalkingTankless.com. Go get Renai to come put a tankless water heater in your house and never run out of hot water again like us. TalkingTankless.com. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America, and the phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. Let's talk about two things that people on the internet and a lot of people in the press corps are actually completely ignorant about. Goodness gracious, the staggering level of people who are 30 feet above a runway. You would think that the host of CNN and the editorial writers of the New York Times would be a little smarter than they are. I mean, they're maybe not bright people, but should at least understand this. The people who are involved in TV in particular should really understand this. As I am watching CNN right now, CNN is playing up James Tallarico, the Democrat in the Senate primary in Texas. It's a tied race for the Democrats. And they needed to manufacture a controversy And CBS, Stephen Colbert and James Tallarico worked together on a lie, the guy who claims to be a Christian. And the American press corps has fawned over him and is doing everything they can to get him across the finish line ahead of Jasmine Crockett. Two things at play here. First, you have to understand. One, you have to understand that the media and the Democrats want James Tallarico to beat Jasmine Crockett because they think that she is less likely to win in Texas. Two, you have to understand the press corps hates CBS News because CBS News has decided to be more fair and balanced than the rest of the press corps, which means they want to give a fair hearing to conservative views, which means they're now the enemy of the American press corps. So killing two birds with one stone, the media has seized upon this stunt pulled by James Tallarico and Stephen Colbert, and they've attempted to muddy the water. Let me unmuddy the water for you. There are two different things at stake here. One is the fairness doctrine, and one is the equal time doctrine. The fairness doctrine no longer exists. And the fairness doctrine says very matter-of-factly that broadcasts like this talk radio program, because it is broadcast over the American airwaves, not just the internet, must have competing sides represented at all times. The fairness doctrine was a way to require that if you had a conservative host, they must be paired with a liberal host. If you have conservative views, you must have liberal views. What typically happened in the production is that the news programming of America would pick two people, one who was a liberal and one who was far left, and say, well, that's the conservative and the liberal view. And over time, everyone realized that this was censorious. This required that the broadcast network shape their political commentary and decide who was conservative and who was liberal. The fairness doctrine is now dead. But what remains is the equal time rule. Broadcast networks, this show included, if in the middle of an election while people are voting, decides to have on a candidate, you have to have on that candidate's competing candidates if they request the time. You will recall very famously a number of years ago Fred Thompson, who had been on Law and Order and a United States Senator, ran for president. And Fred Thompson appeared on a TV broadcast of Days of Thunder in Tennessee when he was running for the United States Senate. And Fred Thompson's opponent demanded the airtime of the local television station that showed the Tom Cruise movie Days of Thunder. Fred Thompson was in the movie for like 15 total minutes of the movie, and the candidate was given 15 minutes of time on the local broadcast. The rule is not the fairness doctrine, and people in the press today are 30 feet above the runway. For those of you who do not know why I say 30 feet above a runway, it is because many people these days get really offended when you say the R word. When you're flying a plane and you are 30 feet above the runway, the plane, if it's an Airbus, begins to bark at you twice to pull up the nose, to essentially slow the rate of decline, to retard the plane. So because people don't like you to use the R word, but the R word is a French word for slow, and the Airbus says 30 feet above the runway, it starts telling you to retard the plane. We got a lot of people in the press who are 30 feet above the runway, probably willfully so, because they don't want to grapple with the truth. The truth is the fairness doctrine no longer exists. I don't have to sit here with a left-wing counterpart to do my show. The equal time doctrine applies even to me. That if I were to interview a candidate on my program in the weeks leading up to an election, I would have to invite the other candidates on as well. Some of you will say, well, wait a second, didn't Rush Limbaugh in 2020 do an entire hour with Donald Trump on his program? Yes. Rush Limbaugh was under no obligation to invite Joe Biden on his show, but Joe Biden could have requested the time on Rush Limbaugh's show and sat down for an hour with Rush Limbaugh. And you know and I know that geriatric dementia patient had no desire to do that with Rush Limbaugh, so it wasn't an issue. Jasmine Crockett, however, would have loved to go on Stephen Colbert's show, but Stephen Colbert does not want to elevate a black woman in Texas who is tied in the polls with James Tallarico as early voting has started in Texas. So Stephen Colbert did an interview with James Tallarico, her white opponent, and then announced that CBS News made him kill the interview. And they turned it into a viral story to help James Tallarico. It's a stunt that has paid dividends. CNN is right now, as I'm talking about this James Tallarico interview, claiming that CBS News was pressured to censor the interview. And CBS has said that's not true at all. We told Stephen Colbert that he would have to give equal time to Tallarico's opponent if she wanted it. We didn't tell him to stop the interview. We just told him you might have to have on Jasmine Crockett. But Stephen Colbert did not want to elevate a black woman who might win a primary in Texas. Nor does the rest of the media, because they're afraid she'll lose the general election. And instead of the media pointing out how racist it was of Stephen Colbert to do this, they've instead claimed that Donald Trump is up to dirty tricks. Absolute nonsense on their part. But why let the truth get in the way of a good story? This is Jasmine Crockett speaking about this situation. She is not happy, to say the least.
We did receive information suggesting that the federal government did not shut down this segment, number one. That is my understanding, that the federal government didn't shut this down, and we will do an official statement once we get another official statement that we anticipate is going to be coming from Paramount. All right, so we will read what they say, and then we'll go from there. It is our understanding that Colbert, either Mr. Colbert or
Don't have your press conference by an airport.
CBS decided to make this get on the air.
What she's saying there as the plane lands is that Colbert decided to shut it down because Colbert didn't want her on. That's the truth. There are a lot of Democrats spending a lot of energy today to deny the truth that Stephen Colbert did not want to put a black woman on his radio program because the election has started in Texas. The equal time rule applies to me. The only major exception to the equal time rule, there are four, but there's a major one, if it's a newsworthy event. So, for example, the other day, I had on the newest entrant into the Georgia gubernatorial primary for the Republicans, Rick Jackson. It was his very first interview. I am not obligated under the equal time rules to give the other candidates their time on the radio program because the election is not afoot in Georgia yet, and it was a newsworthy interview. I intend to have the other candidates on. They don't have to reach out and ask me. I intend to make time for them. We're trying to figure out a way to make it work so you guys nationally don't have to have your day interrupted while I'm interviewing candidates in Georgia. I'm going to make that work. But if I were in the middle of the election, if people were voting and I had on one of the candidates for a softball interview, I'd have to have the other candidates on if they wanted. It's a requirement of the equal time rules under broadcast television. And that's what CBS News told Stephen Colbert. But the truth was not a way to help James Tallarico. James Tallarico holds himself out to be a Christian, and James Tallarico, the supposedly good Christian, decided to collaborate with Stephen Colbert on a big lie to help his chances in Texas. He, the supposed Christian, is campaigning on a lie that the Trump administration didn't want him on the Colbert show. And actually, it was Stephen Colbert didn't want the black woman on his TV show. Jasmine Crockett didn't want her on. And the Democrats were like, well, Erickson, you liar. He had her on in the past. Correct, but the equal time rule only applies when the election's going on and a couple of weeks before the election. They don't want to understand what the fairness doctrine is, which doesn't exist anymore. They've confused it with the equal time rule that does exist now. And the equal time rule is something that is bound to the broadcast networks. They simply are trying to muddy the water here to not grapple with the truth. Again, There are numerous situations in this country, and by the way, it only applies, the equal time rule per se, to federal candidates, not even to state candidates, but these are federal candidates. You put a federal candidate on an entertainment segment of your TV broadcast network, you get to give the other candidate equal time if it's within the election. It applies to federal candidates. It doesn't apply to state and local candidates. Most news networks and broadcast networks apply it across the board to state and local candidates. When I became a radio show host in the year of our Lord 2011, I was in the last year of my term on my city council in Macon, Georgia. And my flagship radio station now for syndication, WSB Radio, I became a local host for them, and they made me resign my seat on my city council because they didn't want to be accused of running afoul of the equal time rules when the election came. I was happy to resign. I wasn't going to run again anyway, but they were concerned about having a presently elected person who might run again for office on, and I decided I wouldn't run again and I would step aside early so that there were no problems for them should anyone complain. It impacted the equal time rule, directly impacted my life. I know what the equal time rule is. Stephen Colbert is pretending to be ignorant because he knows what it is too. He lied about what the press said. He lied about what CBS's lawyer said. He lied about what the federal government said. And most of the American press corps is carrying water for Stephen Colbert's lie because they want to get CBS News, because they don't like Bari Weiss, even though the Stephen Colbert show is overseen by the entertainment division, not the news division, so Bari Weiss is not involved. And they also want to stop Jasmine Crockett. What you are seeing with the National Press Corps is essentially a major conspiracy between news outlets to deprive Jasmine Crockett of airtime because they don't like that the uppity black woman in Texas is tied to the white guy they want to get. They've tried to find their next Beto O'Rourke. They found their next Beto O'Rourke in Texas. They don't want to compete. I will point out a single signature fact to you. In the year of our Lord 2018, Stacey Abrams got the exact same treatment from the National Press Corps. They ignored her in favor of Beto O'Rourke. Only when Stacey Abrams came close to not winning in Georgia but getting into a runoff in Georgia did the media say, oh my gosh, she's somebody, we should elevate her star. They denied Stacey Abrams TV interviews. They denied Stacey Abrams the cover on magazines. They denied all the attention to Stacey Abrams so they could give it to Beto O'Rourke, thinking he could beat Ted Cruz, and he didn't. She came closer. And Andrew, what's his name, down in Texas, came within a percentage point of beating Ron DeSantis. And the two black candidates were denied major media coverage in favor of the white guy in Texas, and it's happening all over again with the National Press Corps choosing to elevate one white guy in Texas over black candidates. They did it to Stacey Abrams, and the guy down in Florida running against Ron DeSantis the first time, who wound up having the drug addiction and the gay prostitute scandal. Now they're doing it with James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett in Texas. The pattern plays out. The National Press Corps, for all of their talk about diversity and race and equality and equity, they prefer white candidates to black candidates challenging Republicans. That's why this is happening, and they've chosen to lie about it. I just find it very funny. I got lots of Democrats coming after me. You're on talk radio. I can't believe you support the equal time rule all of a sudden. Y'all, I'm bound by the equal time rule. It's the fairness doctrine that I'm not bound by. Conservative talk radio would not be possible if the fairness doctrine still existed, but the FCC finally got rid of it, and it was never enforced because even the Democrats on the FCC understood it was unconstitutional. But yeah, this program that you're listening to, because I'm not just on the internet, I'm on broadcast time, the fairness doctrine comes into play. Now, would a Democrat want to sit on my program in the run-up to an election and have me on the air? I kind of doubt it. I kind of doubt they would want to sit with me if a Republican came on, but you will understand that this program does not often have interviews to begin with, because we have found that you guys would much prefer to talk to me than have me talk to other people and have y'all interview. So it's a rare day for me to have interviews on. We've done a few, but not a whole lot of them. And I'm going to work my local station in Atlanta to make sure I can get the other gubernatorial candidates on in the state of Georgia. Now, we got other stuff that we have to get to today because there's a lot happening. And when we come back, I actually want to spend a little bit of time on the deal in New York City and what's going on there. But before I do, let me see if I can squeeze Jay's phone call in here real quick. Jay, welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric, long-time listener. Just wanted to talk over coincidentally, it's also a Texas-type issue. One of the things you brought up earlier in the show was in regards to, the price of beef at the supermarket. And one of the interesting kind of pivots on that one is the fact if you look at one of the largest attributors to like what makes the price, the per pound price for like ground beef, for instance, on the table in America, the largest contributor cost feed in for that is actually the cost of feed and grazing and raising the cattle. It's like about 70%. And unfortunately, underneath Democrats, we've ended up having a lot of different problems, where public grazing lands have actually been taken away as far as from a rights standpoint, so that cattle ranchers can't use nearly as much public lands for grazing, as well as also at finishing processing facilities. They're using feed that unfortunately is at higher than regular prices due to the scourge of high energy prices, combined with, of course, farmable land competes heavily against the ethanol. Do you think ever, that we might actually have some deregulation, maybe ethanol,
as a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought up the federal land because the Democrats have restricted that usage. And yeah, I actually think there's a rule that they're working on right now to roll that back and make it permanent to give further access to grazing on federal land, which they need to do. By the way, this hour of the program is brought to you by Van Allen Golf, ALLEN, vanallengolf.com, a maker of fine golf equipment. Text golf to 33777 or go to vanallengolf.com to see their fine equipment. Speaking of equipment, if you need a new computer for your home or office, Vision Computers can build you that computer. They can then give you, or they will give you, with that computer, their tech support. And their tech support is just hands down fantastic. My son has a gaming PC that we got for Vision. They met with him so that he could explain the sort of stuff he wanted to do with it. And they made sure it's going to be upgradable, so he'll be able to take it to college and it'll still be good as new. And we got their managed IT support with it. He's had some problems with it, not because of the computer, because it was outside his wheelhouse on how to do stuff. 2 o'clock in the morning, they get on the phone with him. Live human being. And navigating through the problems. And they do that with everybody, not just us. They do that with your company. If your company gets their managed IT services, your employees get a phone number. They get an actual human being on the phone with them. Call them at 404-COMPUTE today. Anybody nationwide, 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com.